Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Liam Connor. I work with the UTO, and I'm going to be moderating the Zoom discussion. We're going to get started in just a second here, but before we get started, I'm going to ask that if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, and our presenters will answer them at the end. And without further ado, here is Ann Keene, a global education lead with Zoom, to introduce our presenters.
Good morning, everybody. Campers, game changers. I hope everybody has their coffee. Last night we had s'mores, but you know what? We're game changers. I think we could have s'mores for breakfast. Who's in favor of that? I think we had graham crackers. So it's a breakfast food, right? So anyway, well, thank you for joining us. This is the arts and crafts section, and today we are going to talk about creative uses of Zoom. And with me, I have three panelists, and we also sent out a form to crowdsource some of your great ideas, which you can continue to submit. We're always looking for great ideas. You know, we see a lot out in social media of people, just yesterday, there's a new beer called For Zoomers. And so there's all kinds of great and exciting things happening. But I think what's most near and dear to our hearts is to see how educators are using Zoom. And so with me today, I have three great educators. We have Greg Garman from University of Texas at Austin. And then we've got Mike Matthews from Oral Roberts University. And we have Jocelyn Widmer from Texas A&M. And I really didn't mean to have the Aggies and the Longhorns together. It just happened to be that way. So anyway, but thank you for joining us. And let's jump right in it. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to have the panelists speak, and then I'm going to call on some of you who submitted some great ideas, and then we'll take some Q&A. So, okay, all right. Let's see. Greg, would you like to get started? Share a little bit about yourself and what you're doing and your creative uses of Zoom.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me and everyone for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Can you hear me okay? Am I coming through loud and clear? All right, wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, I am a professor of design, and I'm also the director of the Center for Integrated Design at UT Austin. The Center for Integrated Design is about providing design-based learning experiences for any student at the University of Texas. So every major from history to business, nursing, undergrad, grad students, we see design and creative practices as actually like a core competency for the 21st century and are looking at sort of integrating that into all the disciplines. The goal is to reach 45,000 students at the University of Texas. We're only about 2 years old, so we've gotten up to about 1,000 a year, but with a place as big as Texas, our goals are still pretty lofty. What that also means is that we have about 20 classes every semester that are design or creative based, a lot of cutting edge stuff like AI, AR, talking about things like ethics and entrepreneurship and creative practices. And like many of you, I imagine, as educators or in the educational system, in March, we had to transfer everything online, which at that time was still about 15 of our 20 classes. We offer a lot of short 5-week 1 credit hour classes. So what I wanted to share was to talk about a couple big ideas about how we've been trying to be a little bit more creative. Is that all right? Anne, is now the time to do that?
Now's the time to do it.
Okay, great. So actually what I wanted to share was that I'll show you a couple images, but I kind of wanted to think about, and I have been as a designer first and kind of a designer of educational experiences, thinking about how do we use the sort of tools that are inherent to Zoom to be a little bit more creative in what we're doing to engage the students. And so in some ways we're constrained, right? Like I mean, I went to school for architecture, so I love physical space. I am so curious about how we gather and move and the behaviors and the things we learn together, but that's not an option anymore. So what do we have? So myself and some colleagues, we started looking at things like, well, we have control of our video, right? So you can sort of leave it on, or you can kind of turn it off. So you can sort of toggle between those things to communicate like I'm involved, I'm not involved, or like we play a lot of games. So if you like lose a round of rock, paper, scissors, you like turn your video off. That's how we know who the winners are moving forward, things like that. The other thing is that we've got our conversation and we also have our chat. So we kind of move back and forth. And then I think a lot about how we use the actual like physical space. I sort of joke that we're sort of like bounded by these boxes like mimes, but the reality is that we've still got our rooms. And so we tend to sort of still move around and talk and stand and stretch and things like that. So what I wanted to share was a couple images of things that I've done over the last couple months. I've also been consulting with other organizations that have been looking to move their design thinking and creative courses online since March. So one of the things that we do is we actually do a lot of physical activities that then we ask people to sort of show up in their camera. So we like to do this thing where we do like blind contour drawings or sketches, and then people sort of hold it up, which is, I think, a really fun way to double check that it doesn't all have to be digital. It can sort of be blended even when we're not together. So we love Post-its and Sharpies. I mean, I'm currently holding them just maybe out of habit at this moment. But the idea to be able to sort of draw and show, I think, is quite important. The other thing, let me see if I can go full screen on this. That might help. So this was a group from that I had worked with earlier. It's actually one of the first classes that I did. There were 160 people in this particular course with multiple facilitators and co-hosts to sort of help manage, but lots of creativity happening here. The other one is that we like using and communicating in ways that are nonverbal. So we don't just have to chat. One of the things that I've included in all my classes is using the silent applause that comes from American Sign Language. So it's static right now. It just looks like everyone's got hands up. But what we're doing is sort of applauding for each other and using thumbs up and using okay. In my design classes, we do a lot of voting, like on a scale of 1 to 5, how much are you enjoying this right now? And, you know, hopefully it's a 5, which is a good one. And then the last one is that we also, to keep up engagement, especially in spring when we were so new to this, we, as a class, this is my design studio, decided to have themes for every class where, kind of like today, I don't normally wear my Stetson and my bandana like a normal cowboy, but it's fun to be able to sort of show up. So UT Austin, one of the days was all about school spirit. So we had everybody dress up and do our classic hook 'em horns. So really, that just what I wanted to share was that we're able to get creative with the tools that we have, that they might be constraints, but actually it's also one of our greatest opportunities as great educators. So maybe with that, I'll take a pause, and thanks so much. Oh, and I think you're muted as well.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think my computer noise was pinging. So anyway, so we have time. Thanks, Ray, for that. I think design is a great way. I love the fact that UT Austin is doing it all throughout the courses and all throughout the campus, actually, in the courses. Let's turn now to, let's see, well, Mike, do you want to go and we'll talk about what you're doing at Oral Roberts University?
Sure. Hey, thanks, Anna. Thanks, everyone, for letting us be a part of this day at ASU. Thank you, ASU, as well. Go ahead and share my screen. And what we probably find Zoom, we went with Zoom Campus Edition, probably the first one in the country about 4.5 years ago. But our goal really was to go from reaching people in 85 nations to all 195 registered nations, and we're up to 120 now. And Zoom allows us to do that. So what you're looking at in front of you is an orphanage in Africa, a classroom that fits their needs, and that's our professor sitting right in the same building I'm sitting in today. And they fall in love with it. So again, only 6% of the world has any form of post-high school diploma, certificate, or degree out of 8 billion people almost. And America selfishly has 46%. So Zoom is opening up the avenues around the world for ORU. And so here we're teaching in Pakistan. And if you look in the lower right, you'll see somebody driving their car. And they take Zoom on motorcycles. They take Zoom in cars. Our faculty think that's crazy, and they think it's unsafe. And I said, I've been over there, and trust me, it's safe. They know how to weave in and out, and they're taking these classes. But what's most amazing is on the left side, you'll see that's our Pakistan people graduating in those rooms, 23 of them located places we don't even advertise where they're at. But to them, that certificate they earn or diploma or degree means the world to them. And so for them, the ability to have a classroom like we have and do things instantaneously around the world is huge. But one of the things, now I'm a big proponent of online, but I've been for 25 years. 25 years ago, I thought everyone would be smart enough to be online. However, people still like traditional until COVID becomes a disruptor of our century. And now the question is, people are degrading their own content by saying virtual is less. Well, if content is content and it's the same, and you know how to engage, and Zoom allows you to engage, do whiteboards, breakouts, there's no reason it's less. In fact, I argue virtual or online is of greater value. Now, keep in mind, I say that because I'm thinking about people around the world, not just 4,000 or 50,000 that attend a big university. I'm thinking about millions of people, billions of people who don't have that privilege. And so we're able now to measure in each cohort, is the value of online, virtual, hybrid, or traditional of the same value? And we're able to prove that now. We're using a special product that it goes across the SIS, LMS, and CRM systems called Selagio Artificial Intelligence that allows us to do that. So from measuring to being in orphanages to reaching around the world, we also set up a production studio. We call it Zoom Studio. And here you see our president in the lower left and the upper right. He was doing recordings all summer long, and we're pushing those out. We reached 110,000 people. Now, the original event that had to be canceled would have only had about 10,000 people at it. He was blown away how we're able to multiply. So think of it this way. If you see a YouTube video, the chances are in the last 6 months it was originated on Zoom. We are taking the Zoom Studio, recording in Zoom, and then pushing that out through YouTube, Vimeo, and every other means that's possible. So no longer just music or fix-it-yourself videos. It's great content. And so we're excited what's happening at ORU, thanks to Zoom, for everything they're doing. But we're doing virtual reality over the same thing. How do we really impact the world? Every one of us have a fresh opportunity to do exactly that. And you can't think of a better place than Arizona State University to lead this, because #1 innovative university 4 years in a row. We think ORU is not far behind that, if not equal to that. Why? Because of the products that make things equal for everyone today. Thanks, Ann.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That's great. It's amazing the uses and the reaches of Zoom as sort of that connecting platform. And I was having a conversation with Lev Gonick last weekend, and we were talking about it's no longer sort of K through 12 or K through college, or it's sort of like it's life to forever is learning. And so the fact that we can just have this sort of common connecting platform that not only goes across all sort of learning learning ages, right? But it goes all across. It's global, and so that's an amazing.
Yeah, if I could say one more thing that's important for people to realize what happened is Zoom, and I'm not bragging for Zoom. I don't work for Zoom or anything, but the reality is they are now worth more than all 7 major airlines combined. That's the shift that happened. That's incredible. More shifts on their way.
Thank you, Mike. That's great. Okay, Jocelyn from Texas A&M. Tell us what the Aggies are up to.
Great. Thanks, Ann. And Ryan, let me get my slides up. So what I'm going to focus on is some of the enabling environment that we put in place over the last couple of months. We launched Zoom in April of 2019 and maybe had 16,000 of our 79,000 licenses used when we all had to shift to remote. So this slide just gives you a sense of what that adoption looks like. What I'm most proud of is the graph on the bottom, March 17th, for the first time ever, almost a year to the date of launching Zoom, we had equal use of video and audio and screen share. And that was at the height of when we were training about 1,400 faculty to use Zoom. And, of course, 7 days trying to get almost 14,000 courses shifted online. So what that meant in terms of policy was we were trying to promote engagement. Video first certainly is Zoom's mantra, so we were trying to use the product the way it was designed. But with that came a whole bunch of policy decisions that we had to think about in terms of do you record sessions or not? Do you require students to turn on their videos or not? And I'm sure all of y'all have been embedded in those types of conversations over the last couple of months. So how did we really drive adoption? So we had Zoom in place, and we really needed to amplify its use. My slides are not moving. There we go. So we focused on leveraging a communication strategy to really drive innovation. So again, my job was to amplify the ed tech tools, the digital learning environment, so that the innovation could really happen across 17 schools and colleges at A&M. So we used communication assets, social media quite a bit, and tried to really leverage little bites of pedagogy and linking Zoom to that pedagogy and everything that we pushed out. So this is one example. And these are just a whole bunch of different assets that we pushed out over the course of a couple of months. First and foremost, we had to manage the change. First to shifting online, but then also this culture. We as everybody that's on this session is part of a rich university culture. Likely at A&M, we take our culture very seriously. It's a very high touch, in-person culture. So a lot of that had to shift and be translated online. And then of course the changes with Zoom, some of the security upgrades, we were constantly making sure we were keeping in step with those. Linking Zoom to the teaching and learning potential, as you see in that middle band. And then the dialogue was super important. So not just this one way we're pushing out best practices, but making sure we're getting feedback on what innovations are coming, both from the student perspective as well as from the faculty perspective. The student voice was something that we utilized quite a bit through our the last couple of months to really continue the change. So with that, we absolutely love the co-host feature of Zoom. So we, in addition to keep teaching, keep learning initiatives, we had a keep working initiative where a lot of the student workers whose work was suspended in the latter part of the spring semester, we employed them to be co-hosts in classes, particularly with faculty who maybe didn't have the dexterity with the technology. So these are some of those keep working students who learned quite a bit about how online delivery works by being that co-host in the sessions. And I would say the College of Architecture, in terms of policy, this is something that they required every single course to have a co-host. So another just, behind the scenes innovation that I think is super important. So as many of you probably struggled with in the spring semester, proctoring was kind of one of the great fails of the ed tech landscape. And kind of flippantly, I said to the provost when the writing was on the wall in early March that the live proctoring wasn't going to be sustainable. I said we can proctor through Zoom. So the first day of the spring semester, when we started back after spring break, March 23rd, we proctored 1,300 students using Zoom through just the ingenuity of a faculty member in the Department of Physics. And from that really just started the dialogue, hosted sessions, faculty panels, and we're now moving towards a place where we're trying to stand up as a virtual Zoom proctoring center. Because much like many of the large institutions, ASU being one of them, UT certainly another one, we estimate that we give 600,000 exams a semester. So Zoom proctoring is probably the most sustainable option for us moving forward. And you can there's a little thumbnail sketch of what that exam environment looks like. And then lastly, just the traditions are so rich that we've all had to modify and think differently about. And that idea of access and bringing in voices and perspectives that would have never been part of a conversation. So what you see in the larger screen is the business school advisory council. So industry leaders who have all transitioned their life and their work online via Zoom. And the president is there in the middle of the screen, as is the dean. So this was a big gig'em that then got translated into a virtual recognition ceremony. So these assets that Zoom provides that kind of can be used over and over again, and then how generous people were with their time to be able to participate in these virtual recognition ceremonies, which would have been so different had they occurred in person. And then the last slide, with this little thumbnail at the bottom is just a vignette that gives me chills. This was issued on April 10th, and you just slide and you slide and you slide and you see these thumbnails of Aggie nurses who were kind of turned loose early to be on the front lines of the COVID response. So just a really powerful artifact of how Zoom brought these Aggie nurses together, these potential or future frontline workers, and just the chance to have that moment together before they went out into the world and really tackled, what we're amidst today. So with that, I am done.
Jocelyn, thank you very much. That is amazing, and what a broad range of usage that you have and you shared with us. And one thing that just really stuck out with me, and I think this comes up in conversation a lot, is it's one thing to have creative uses, and because typically it's the people like that are at this conference, right? It's the people who have been at the forefront of online learning and using ed technology and creative uses. But when you when you shift from these, what have been maybe the fringes, right, to the core, I think change management is a big issue. And so can you talk a little bit more about how you went about with your change management initiative?
Sure. Well, that's something, we're amidst it today, and in full disclosure, we are shifting to a new learning management system. So Zoom really was our proof of concept and gave us confidence as we have much bigger change ahead of us. But I think a big piece is communication. I have learned so much from communication experts over the last several months, and sitting with them and understanding what works, what doesn't work, the analytics behind it. That has been something that we've really tried to drill deep. What are people responding to? What are they not? And then just being accessible. I think Zoom opens up a level of accessibility that we've never thought about. From the provost being part of meetings that she normally wouldn't, to just being able to have the archive of meetings and review them when you're on your exercise bike. So you're part of the conversations even when you don't have time to sit on every single meeting. So I would say communication is hands down the biggest piece of that, and then giving people the resources too with that communication. So it's not just the message, but linking to helpful resources.
Great, thank you. Sometimes, like Mike shared, we might reach across the globe to educate people, but sometimes it's in our physical world, just getting across campus is hard enough. And so that's one thing Zoom does. It certainly allows us to be in multiple places at one time or in an instant notice. So that's great. I think what we'll do in the interest of time, we're going to, and be sure to put your questions in the chat, but I'm gonna do a little bit of a shout out in a lightning round. So is Debbie Hughes from Duke University here?
I am.
Okay, Debbie, can you share with us? Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, as I recall, the note that I made in the survey was about how we've been using games like Kahoot and YouTube as something we're sharing together to, for the staff as a way to build community, make sure we all feel connected at the Academic Resource Center. But then also, excuse me, in training students on learning strategies, using Kahoot at the end of the week as a way to summarize the learning in a fun game manner. So just the fact that Zoom allows us to use one person's full internet access to share with everybody at once, it has really opened doors for making things more fun and engaging, especially for students, but not least for us as a team.
Thanks, Debbie. That's great. We use Kahoot too in some of our internal trainings, and it can be a lot of fun. It's a fun tool.
Thank you.
Okay, is Lisa Koster with us?
I am.
From Conestoga.
Yes. Hello.
Hello. Can you share with us? You had a lot to say. Can you share with us?
I always have a lot to say. I had a couple different types of uses, and I found, and this is pre-Zoom, I always found that students would email me in the evenings, and I was like, they never come to my online or my office hours for help. I teach math, and a lot of students need a lot of help with math. So I started going online, doing online tutoring in the evenings. And prior to using Zoom, it was sometimes bulky and difficult. So when Zoom came out, and I asked my dean if I could get access to it, and students really liked it. It was easy to get on, and they could get the help they need when they were doing the work, when they were doing their homework. One of my other examples that I found really excited me is I've been trying to get our school to do a more high flex, which is flexible learning for students. So if a student can't come to class, they can log in and basically be in classroom at home. Of course, now with COVID, everybody's at home and doing it, online classes, whether it's on a live class or not. But I had a student who emailed me. She was very upset because she wasn't going to be able to come to class. And I said, hey, let's try something. I'm not in one of the newer classrooms with the new podiums and the better Wi-Fi, but let's try it anyway. And the one nice thing about Zoom is it doesn't seem to take up a lot of bandwidth. And so I was able to allow her to, she came to class, I shared the screen, she was part of the class the entire time, and she still talks about it today, how much of it she appreciated being able to be in class without actually having to come to class. And I think, that's sort of my two big examples. On a personal note, I think Zoom has helped with COVID and helping our family stay together. My mother-in-law is by herself, can't see anybody because of her age, and she actually at 85 was using Zoom, and we do it as a family. So that's just a little personal side.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Do we have Joan Concannon from University of York?
Yes. Hello. I'm Director of External Relations at the University of York in Northern England. We run a Festival of Ideas every year, which normally speaking is mostly, always physical events, around about 200 events. Key thing is that it's free, so we have the most diverse audiences that we can generate. And we took a decision when lockdown happened in mid-York that our 10th anniversary would happen in our 11th year because we weren't going to be able to do anything in June. And then our university acquired Zoom when we started to transition to home working. And we also acquired the Zoom webinar platform, and it's been utterly transformational. We transitioned 97 events onto Zoom, and we have normally speaking about 30 to 35,000 people who come to around about 200 events over 13 days every June. We did 97 events, some of which were very much focused on providing alternatives to parents frazzled with homeschool, so very much aimed at children, but also showcasing the value of higher education to diverse audiences. And we have an audience still counting upwards of 43,000 over the same 13 days, with one exception that we had a very high profile journalist who couldn't do it when she was scheduled, and we did her last night. So that's going to add massively to the audience numbers as well. So the festival is really a means of communicating the value and purpose of higher education. I don't know about you guys, but the UK, there's a daily questioning of the value and purpose of who gets to go to university at the moment in the UK, which is deeply disturbing for all kinds of reasons, and very much in the space where Michael Crow is talking about education as a great democratizer. We see the festival as a means of being able to demonstrate the importance of education to very diverse audiences, and Zoom has been really, really helpful. We've reached people in 130 countries. We specifically used it to invite our prospective students who are in our cycle of recruitment at the moment to engage our global alumni audience. And it's just been brilliant, and I'm a huge fan. So we will be now looking at a hybrid model for the festival next year. We will certainly want to do physical events because people enjoy the interaction, especially if speakers are well known. But our opportunity to reach out to audiences around the world and think about our brand development in that context is just transformational. And the final thing I would say is it's also meant that from a speaker acquisition point of view, the world is now my oyster. There's some very high profile speakers I've had warm interactions with over the years, but couldn't commit to 2-3 days coming to York in England if they're US or Australia based. Where fundamentally now my plan B, if they can't come to York, is, hey, I've got a Zoom webinar platform and come and join us there. So thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. I think the bringing events like that and the whole social aspect, to the broader audience is outside the classroom, right? Just really helps the engagement with your institutions. And like you said, it's sort of the brand, it's the community, it's the the engagement piece of it, and the entertaining. That's the arts are so important to all of our well-being. It's great to see you do that.
It's multidisciplinary, and I will say as well, it really was in a local context of UK lockdown. We got a huge amount of positive feedback about social isolation, people who couldn't leave their house, who felt the festival had provided something really educational and entertaining, and some speakers were just incredibly inspirational. So anyone who wants to check it out, it's yorkfestivalofideas.com, and you're all welcome, because there's a watch again, YouTube.
Thank you. And speaking of going places without leaving our home, I'm going to call on John Idelson, who is a professor at CSU Monterey. And John, you've been doing some great work with PORTS. Can you share that with us?
Sure. PORTS stands for Parts Online Resources for Students and Teachers. And for literally the last 20 years, they've been providing electronic field trips between interpreters and K-12 classrooms and some university classrooms. When we had our shelter in place, they had to pivot, and literally in 1 week, it went from PORTS for students and teachers to PORTS at home. I'm trying to see if I could get the data, but they basically were doing 5 electronic field trips a day, focused at various grade levels from K-3 to high school and some university environmental studies programs. And it not only met an incredible need. We got recognized by the governor's wife. The interpreters have become mini stars within their own locations, but it really provided an opportunity to very quickly provide engagement with students in their homes. And PORTS has a long-term partnership with Zoom, their trusted partner. And because of that close relationship, not only were they able to do these electronic field trips, but we were very lucky that we prevented all the security issues because we were following all the best practices that Zoom put out. So the PORTS program is really a very successful program. They normally go dark in the summer because schools aren't happening, but there was such a demand that they're now, this summer, they're doing junior rangers and ranger programs, and we're gearing up for an even larger outreach with the PORTS program during the next school year, and particularly in California, where 80% of the schools will be closed in fall. They'll be providing virtual experiences for students with the natural resources of California.
That's great, John. And also, if you have links to great stuff, just put it in the chat and we can share it with everybody. That'd be fantastic.
I'll put the PORTS link in the chat right now.
Okay, great. And I've actually had the opportunity to meet with the head of PORTS, and it is fascinating. And the numbers are astounding of the audiences that he's reaching and and this is appeals to K-12, to college, to our social lives, everything. It's a fantastic program. Do we have, from Temple University, do we have Cheryl? Cheryl she's using breakout rooms. Is she on here? Okay. Nope. Okay, then we will move to Jason Mobley. Can you share with us some of the great things that you're doing, and show your setup there? You have all kinds of equipment.
Yeah, I always tell people that this is a virtual background, and they don't believe me. But so my name is Jason Mobley. I formerly was the executive director of IT at Florida A&M, but as of this week, I am a solutions engineer at Zoom. So in my life at Florida A&M, I was there for 10 years in the College of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. And during COVID, we, very much like Jocelyn, we had to find a way to deal with widespread cheating. And we were using ExamSoft at the time, and ExamSoft is an application, not web-based. And we didn't have a solution outside of a proctored environment. So the faculty voted to kind of roll back to Respondus. But the issue is we started finding instances where students were cheating the system and having ways around Respondus. So we added Zoom to our virtual proctoring. And the way that we did that is we took on their device, they used Respondus. Of course, it locks down their computer. It even had the webcam feature. but we took their cell phone and we had them angle it to the side of them so that we could see them, their hands, their keyboard, and then we set up breakout rooms with individual proctors. So we had about 6 to 8 students per breakout room. At times we had about 50 breakout rooms going on. Each individual proctor recorded their individual breakout rooms, and we did room checks at the beginning and every 45 minutes. The one thing that we found is initially we started with everyone being muted so that there was not background noise. But then we had an instance where there was one student left, and the professor called me into the breakout room and said, I think the student is cheating because they're mouthing something. So what I did is I created 2 extra breakout rooms called help desk, and the student didn't know that I moved them, but I moved them there and then I unmuted them. And there was another person standing behind them reading their screen, giving them the answers. So of course, you know, that's academic dishonesty, but it quelled all of that. And we used it for our P4 comprehensive and then all of our finals. And now moving into the fall semester, they will continue to use Zoom for proctoring, which is a very good solution.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Jason. And we're so happy to have you join us with your plethora of experience. It's going to be great to have you contribute to our continued focus on education on a global basis. So, okay, I think we might have time for one more. And does anybody want to raise their hand? I'll just do a shout out. Okay, Edward, go for it.
Okay, hi, how you doing? I'm Edward Garcia from the College of Law at Arizona State University. And mine's a little more fun and more social than anything. So at the law school, we host an annual graduation dinner and award ceremony for the graduating students. And obviously this year we couldn't do that. So we hosted it over Zoom. So it was all of the law school administrators, the dean, the faculty, and all the students that were graduating. We held an award ceremony in a main Zoom room, and then we created breakout rooms, which were like virtual tables, where the faculty and different administrators broke in different rooms and had dinner with the graduating students and got to engage and participate. And so it all worked really well. And so we weren't going to do it at first, but it worked really well, and the students enjoyed it. And yeah, so it was just, you know, it worked well. And I just wanted to share that. So that's it.
All right. Anybody else want to do a little shout out? We'll do a little. Okay, Mike. Mike Kyle.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
We are primarily a speech and debate academy, but we also have a school. We're partners with ASU Prep Digital, and we've been doing a lot of different things, including interactive government class, where we have role playing and different people come in for those classes on Zoom as if they're joining a legislative session. We've also been doing a lot of work with online speech and debate tournaments, and we found those to be really, really well received. We hosted the first national online junior tournament this year with trophies and everything. What was nice is instead of having the trophies ready to give out, we were able to order the trophies afterwards and personalize each of the trophies with the students' names on it. We also were able to put a legislative session of 30 senators into one room with judges. What was cool is grandparents could come in and watch their kids compete, all the different people. It was really exciting how we've opened it up, and now we have competitors coming in from all over the world for these local tournaments that we've had throughout the years. And now they're becoming gigantic. So it's become something that we'll probably stay with.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Sam, where are you? I'm going to call on you. What's going on at the UTO at Arizona State University?
Thank you. I've never been so happy to just be randomly called on, actually. I'm feeling great about this because during the pandemic, so much was going on. But at the same time, as we all know, there were have been many silver linings that as we're creating the next normal, we don't want to go back to how it was before. So the University Technology Office, we started our own newsroom in 2019. And then in 2020, we found ourselves starting a brand new category in our newsroom that I linked to earlier here in the chat called Remote Resilience. Many of those stories are actually from the faculty, student, or staff perspective, ways in which they've used Zoom in combination with Slack, Canvas, other things basically, or a lot of stories about how they did things, students did things like defend their dissertations, how faculty did cool things like teach ornithology classes, which, you know, primarily you would think would need to be very much in person, how they made that happen in Zoom and still created an engaging experience. We have stories, actually, for me in particular, as a parent in a situation with a now 3-year-old that was very much a monkey in my back during all of my Zoom meetings. It sort of made me realize, okay, I need a support group for this, right? We all do. So I was able to start a ASU-wide remote working live parenting channel that anyone at ASU that's a parent or interested, you know, can join. And people were sharing their stories. They were sharing funny photos to kind of give levity to the situation. People were stepping up out of the woodwork who had never met before to support each other in this community. And overnight, we had hundreds of people just gathered there. And to this day, the channel is still going strong with daily posts from people because the challenge at hand is still very much alive. And anyways, Zoom has been a wonderful way to connect those people, you know, that are new, you know, to this, that are in the ASU community. They're also parents and doing this juggling act.
Thanks, Sam. I really admire all the working parents because I have 2 sons, and thank God they're both out of college, and I just can't imagine what, you know, having to be on all the time and also trying to take care of the family and extended family. It's a challenge, and I know here at Zoom we are doing a lot from a cultural standpoint and talking to our employees about it. Take breaks, take time. It's okay to have a dog or a cat or a child or, you know, somebody, you know, or the lawnmower is going on. It's okay. It's life. Life is happening, and we just all have to be. It's sort of that humanizing of our experience and the blending of our home and our workspaces. One more. Let's see. Is Candice Teal? Candice, I saw you pop in. Are you still here? I don't know if she popped out, but I thought it would be great to hear from Candice. Nope. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we do have a question. This is from Chris Campbell. And Chris says, I would like to hear on universities using NDI technology and eCam live integration within Zoom. Can anybody here speak to that from a university? No. Oh, John, do you want to talk to it, John?
Well, I can speak a little bit to it. NDI is a method of getting cameras into computers, and the eCam has the ability to take a network camera into a Zoom meeting. There's a group called Alex Lindsay Office Hours. Alex Lindsay is famous for working on Lucasfilms and doing the chats for the Obama administration on the web. And it's a group that meets daily talking about technology issues, both for presentations, and they have a subgroup focusing on education. So the issue of getting cameras into Zoom was a big challenge when the security issues were up and the virtual cameras. So essentially NDI is a way of getting a virtual camera in. Right now it's not in Zoom. I'm rooting for it, but if you want to know more about it, the Alex Lindsay Office Hours has a Discord discussion specifically talking about NDI, not only for getting cameras within rooms, but the ability to bring cameras in remotely. And we're looking at it with the state parks to be able to have cameras out on locations where humans aren't and using the network to get the camera images into our Zoom conferences.
One thing, too, that I would add to John's discussion, I actually do a lot of testing, and I have a couple NDI cameras that I've been testing just because obviously in large classrooms, distance is typically an issue, especially in lecture halls. So the NDI technology is going to be great. As what John said, too, on the backside of Zoom, there are discussions in development on getting that working, but that is not, of course, even live yet, but we are looking at that at Zoom right now.
Excellent. Okay.
And what I can say, there is a quick workaround. You have an NDI camera. There's an app on the iPhone or iPad that is an NDI receiver, and you put that iPad into Zoom. So we are using NDI cameras right now in Zoom conferences.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, there certainly will be more coming out about that. And thanks for jumping in, John and Jason. There's a question for the panel, and that question is, let's see. What were the accessibility issues at a large public university with a diverse population, a lot of first-generation, first-time students who don't have even have laptops at home? How have you been addressing that? Jocelyn, it looks like you jumped in there, and then maybe real quickly we can hear from the other panelists if you want.
Sure, definitely an issue, and you realize that I think what Gray said kind of on the fly, the data is important on this one because it can quickly spiral into something that's not as big as of an issue as it might be based on social media chatter and stuff like that. So definitely get a finger on the pulse of how widespread this issue is. But what we have done is put a BYOD policy in place that then matches with what we're implementing in terms of Zoom proctoring and stuff like that, so that we don't have disconnects in our policy and in the realities of the devices and connectivity of our students.
I can add that, and I put this into the chat, but I can give it some more explanation, that one of the things that a group of design faculty members and I did in like the first week of work from home and quarantine is build up a set of tools, design tools that allow you to kind of reimagine your classroom. And the sort of kickoff and maybe most important tool is a Google survey that if you run it through Google Suites, it does follow FERPA, at least it does through the University of Texas rules, which gives you, and you can, I'll send the link, you can use it, you make your own copy, you can use it in your classroom. It's for your students to fill out, and it's a handful of questions that give each of you, because I feel like there are systems level changes, but as a professor, I want to know what the like 10, 15, 20, 40 students in my class are going to be able to do. And with that knowledge, I'm able to get a little bit more creative, and I can understand what I can expect and what they can expect of me as well. And that felt really important from at least sort of a designerly, like the more I understand of my students, the more I can be responsive and critical and thoughtful and equitable in the type of experiences that I'm going to provide. And I'm doing it again for this fall. So that's sort of our little more practical way of, I feel like it gives me a little more control as a professor.
This is Mike from Oral Roberts University. A couple of things we've did, and I think the person from the parks had mentioned a little bit, how do you integrate an iPad or Crestron collectively to get an end around? So what we're using is the Amazon Fire Stick and using Amazon Skills so we can pop open any class around the world. So if you think around the world, there's Earth cams located. So we can connect now to any classroom in the world just by putting an Amazon Fire Stick on a TV and say, open classroom, open lab. And now keep in mind, it's not perfect because it's one IP address, one student, but it works perfect for people who don't have a laptop. If you've got a 10-year-old TV, we can now put all the classrooms on that Fire Stick. And same for Roku. The key is you have to know how to publish with this stuff. So we can now have somebody on the other side of the world access D2L, the Banner SIS system, the Salesforce system, all from a game controller on their Alexa Fire Stick. Great day. And I think once the vendors pick up on this, they'll start incorporating it and doing it in their design.
Okay, thank you. And we have one last, maybe two more. Do we have Melinda Medina from University of Phoenix who does a virtual painting class? That sounds really interesting. Okay, maybe she's not here. Okay, anybody else want to give an example? Just raise your hand. I can't see everybody. Somebody shout out if you see a hand raised that I can't see.
I just want to do a shout out to Gary. Gary did a very interesting piece in Medium talking about, Zoom and designing it. Do you want to talk about that? It was a great piece. We could use a lot of people sort of brain dump about what are things we could do to improve how we use Zoom in classrooms.
Are you talking about Gray Gammon?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, okay, great.
No worries. And my dad's name is Gary, so this is a lifetime challenge.
My problem is that my glasses aren't what they used to be. This is called gray hair, but you and I've chatted, but I'm sorry about that. I'll get it
No
right
worries,
next time.
not at all. No worries at all. The big idea, which is actually really what led me to be able to join you today and to be in contact with Anne and the team at Zoom, was I had been talking with a lot of other design faculty about the things that we wished we could have in Zoom and really particularly Zoom for educational experiences, and trying to figure out what are the best things that come from the classroom, and how do we let go of the stuff that we don't need anymore because we're digital, but how do we keep the stuff that we love, which is like, I like playing music in the classroom. That's really important, which you can do, but I'd like more of. Somebody also mentioned it in chat, is the ability to like control the seating order in the Zoom gallery, which would allow you to I know that Mike's next to me, like, Mike, give me a high five. Like, I know we're in the right spot, but I'm probably in a different view than you are. So and I did some sketches, and it was just a fun way on a Friday afternoon to express some possibilities of what might be able to happen in the future as we develop these products. So I've been a big Zoom user for years. We're using it again through UT in all of our design classes this fall, and looking forward to what could come in the future as we get used to digital learning environments.
Thanks, Gray. Thanks, John, for teeing that up. And actually, just a perfect example. We are listening, we're watching, we're learning. One of the, and like I said, I joined Zoom, or maybe I didn't say, I joined Zoom about 5.5, 6 weeks ago as the new global education lead. And so my job is to help us. I work across all of our executive team. I work across our product development, marketing, and sales to really have a global education view for Zoom. And so we're really building out our capability and focusing on the education vertical. We're also focusing on healthcare, government, and financial services. But education is really the primary vertical. And just a little advertisement that we are having another session on Wednesday, and I believe it is, Thursday at 10:15, and where we have our new product lead, Tane Barzos, who came from Stanford University, also worked at ASU and long history in higher education. And I've asked our new chief internet security officer to join us, so we'll be talking about some of the big efforts that we've made over the last 90 days, and then locking down security, privacy issues, a little teaser in some of the enhancements that are coming, and some of the other things that we're going to be doing to engage with the community, like badging, and we're also going to be doing certifications, and we will also be doing more roundtables, CIO roundtables, provost, president roundtables, and launching a Zoom users group. So come if you have some more questions about technology, or if you want to. I know there's a lot of suggestions in the chat on, is Zoom doing this, or you think about this. We really want to hear from you. So so definitely show up if you can on Thursday. And I think that is a wrap. Thanks everybody for joining. This has been really beneficial to us at Zoom, and I hope to the audience in learning about creative uses of Zoom.
Thank you so much, Anne, Gray, Mike, and Jocelyn. Everyone, please join us. There's another section of breakout sessions happening in about 5 minutes, and you can find links to those events from the Slack flag or from Learning Human website. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much to our presenters.
All right, go have some s'mores for lunch.